Hello, welcome to Future Chat.
Please continue.
I forgot what you say after that.
Oh, that's so good.
Each week, Rob, Mike, and I join together and talk about actual science and cell phones. This week, we have a special Elon Musk corner. We've hit a critical mass of Musk stories, making it the Critical Musk Corner. Rob, why don't you take it away?
Well, I mean, I want to say, first of all that's going to get cut because we decided we probably weren't going to talk about Musk, but maybe we will. But there's always some time. This is another episode of Future Chat. Last week, I asked Nick if he wanted to become a full co-host instead of senior contributor. He's like, no, I'd rather just fake jump in and steal announcer from the beginning of the show next week.
I feel like the highest level of contributor is a host's duties.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm living it up. I'm living the dream.
I thought you were actually kind of trying to segue into the first story, which is about other things, in this case, robots taking jobs. And I thought you were trying to steal my job. But I am curious.
Oh, I'm a human.
Your story that you pick often doesn't come up first, but we have no follow-up. So I want to talk about automation first.
I want it to be known that this is the second week in a row we've done Nick's story first. I think that's a record.
Yeah, he's more relevant than usual.
Ermagerd. So, how do you pronounce the name?
Kyrgyzstats?
Yeah, I heard him say it on the video, and I was like, oh, that's pretty straightforward. I don't know why I had a problem with it. And then as soon as he's not the one saying it, I'm like,
I mean, I think that's the reason they rebranded it In a Nutshell.
My story this week was actually a bit of East meets West corner. And I was referring specifically to the fact that the government of Canada is increasing funding for its military, reaching to 1.5% of GDP, which still falls short of the 2% NATO targets that we're supposed to be doing, and everyone's supposed to be doing, but nobody actually does except for the United States.
Right.
But part of that announcement was that there would be significant investment made into drone technology. And rather than our jobs, I guess drones will be stealing the jobs of our men and women in uniform.
Right, which seems like a good thing, I would have to say.
Well, I wanted to bring it up here because many people don't think it's a good idea, but
I mean, there are good and bad. Overall, I would think like my choice would be not like solving conflicts with nonviolence, but all you need, like every time I think about this, I think, okay, like peace is the ultimate option, but then what happens if you get attacked? And they want to use force. You can't agree to like a virtual chess match where it's drones versus drones. And then like you decide ahead of time to concede when all your drones are defeated. But then what if you defeat the other army, but then they keep coming at you with regular people? Like it only works until somebody escalates.
Well, and if we were going to have a hypothetical war, I'm pretty sure the challenge that Canada would lay would always be a hockey match.
I was just going to say a giant Battlefield 2 tournament, but
just nationalize our hockey heroes.
I feel like that happened during the Cold War.
Like we need you. We got to get you up here.
Wasn't that like the 70s and mostly the 70s? Wasn't hockey like the way that Canada fought world powers?
Yep.
It was like the proxy war, basically.
So it's 72 Super Series.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we also helped out some hostages.
Sure. And then got credit stolen by Ben Affleck.
Yeah, classic Affleck. Taking artistic license in a movie. Where does he get off?
It's all fine until he starts.
He should know that that's going to be cited as like a primary source.
Yeah. Well, it is.
People are going to use that for a documentary.
Mm-hmm. I never actually saw the movie.
I like how
but
much the leaf is moving in my shot.
it really makes it seem like you're in an earthquake zone, like just lightly all the time.
Pretty seismic. It's pretty. Edmonton's known for its earthquakes.
Yes.
Not its cripplingly depressing winter and architecture, but the earthquakes.
And tornadoes.
Actually, I thought that was a Calgary thing.
Kind of both.
A little of both. So on the automation, like what was the story? Like I noticed you didn't actually post a link in our notes. What are you
I don't even know what we're
referring
talking
to?
about. So
Yeah, exactly.
But I told you, we're talking about the Canadian military using drones.
What about it?
Exclusively or more?
Like, is there an actual story, or is this something we're talking about?
Yes, it's a story. I want to hear your thoughts because
the
a lot
story?
of people have ethical quandaries about the use of drones in warfare.
Okay, so you mentioned the 1.5% military spending, and is that increase coming from implementing drones in warfare?
Part of it is coming from that. Another part, well, I think another part of it is that through their accounting, they're actually starting to count veteran pensions towards military funding, which I have no problem with because a part of military expenditure is paying the people that are doing the fighting for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to pay them a pension too, because that's how that works.
Is everyone else including that though? Because that's just going to raise everyone at that point.
I'm not sure they are. And if you ask Canada's opposition parties, they don't think it should be counted. Well, the Conservatives don't think it should be counted.
So, Nick, this was part of the big announcement that I heard about, but then didn't actually hear. Like, I heard it was coming, but didn't actually hear it. This was what they announced, the new like defense budget or defense plan, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. So in theory, we could go and find like more details about the plan.
I'm posting a link as we speak.
Okay.
So if we're talking about robots taking our gerbs, then
Taking her jabs.
was that how you pronounce that? Jabs?
You're taking her jabs.
Like with any situation where robots are taking our jobs, they're generally taking the frontline positions, leaving people to handle the more analytical, technical, what have you positions. And I think that's a good thing in any case, especially when it comes to warfare. Like you don't want people doing the fighting or the surveillance if you don't need to. Whereas if you can just send a drone out and have people remotely monitoring the operations and that kind of thing, then that's kind of a best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
That's honestly part of the reason I wanted to talk about it on Future Chat was that we talk a lot about automation taking your jobs. And so I see this as just a natural progression, although there are a lot of ethicists who would say it's not acceptable to be inflicting a mortal peril or a mortal risk upon your enemy without taking that risk on yourself. Although perhaps I should have brought an ethicist.
Yeah, I keep thinking like even if you have the problem with a proxy war, which is essentially what like a war between drone, like if we're talking about sending drones overseas or wherever to fight our battles for us, and to like there's a whole big thing about the US government authorizing drone strikes on people.
Yeah.
And that's very different from like kind of a future technology war where you have drones fighting other drones or robots fighting other robots. Because I imagine it like in like the old TV show Robot Wars, where people would build robots and like have them fight one another. I imagine people solving a dispute that way, like a personal dispute.
They just have one of those at the UN.
Yeah, like they send in their robot, but what happens if the robot gets, like, if your robot gets destroyed, but you're still upset with that person, like, what? Obviously, your next step is going to be to try to physically get in a discussion or battle with them. It only works, like I said before, as long as everyone plays by those rules. Like, do we have a new robot Geneva Convention where you are not allowed to physically assault another person? You can only do robot on robot warfare. Like, how that seems like the bigger ethical problem with it, because we've had war for as long as we've had people.
And I will pause briefly here to say I don't think this does qualify as a proxy war, because a proxy war is an actual thing.
Well, it is, but it's the same idea, except the proxies are not different countries you're allied with, or it's just
They're
a different
robots.
army that isn't human. Like, I think it still fits under the definition of.
I don't think it's a proxy war though, because it, rather than having a proxy, the proxy being another country, the drones are your direct military
I agree.
intervention.
It's not exactly the same, but it's the same idea, the way I'm picturing it.
I don't understand why we're not just treating these drone implementations as just another weapon. Like, it's not like these drones have AI where they're determining what targets to take or what things to seek out. Like, they're still being directly controlled by people. There's no element of self-awareness, not even self-awareness. But it's no different than firing a missile.
Right. In a way.
I think
completely. It's a really good way of framing it, in my opinion, because I agree with you. But
I think that in the early years, I just saw Wonder Woman last week, so I'm thinking like World War I. You'd have artillery shells that you have a projectile that as soon as it leaves your cannon or whatever it is, it's gonna, like, physics is gonna direct where it goes. But the missiles we have now, they are intelligent.
Exactly.
They are piloted in the same way, and so I think those fall, for me at least, those fall into the same category as drones.
Right, but that's my whole point, is that we didn't consider those like, oh, this is like an ethical issue. We're fighting robots versus robots. It's like, it's just another weapon.
Have we all watched John Oliver's segment on drones?
Yes, but a long time ago.
Okay, he was very firmly anti-drone.
Yeah, I would also put myself in that camp. I think they fall into the same category as missiles, where I don't like the idea of intelligent missiles that decide on their target, or like aim themselves towards the target after. Like, I'm also like very much a pacifist, so maybe it's just part of that. But I don't like the idea of physical altercations. Like, I would rather settle a dispute. Like, I don't have any strongly held enough beliefs to fight a war over.
Now, see here, you just come over. We'll have ourselves some beer. We'll order some pizza, and we'll talk this out, eh?
I guess. Like, I do understand
Canadian embassies everywhere, and then like you're talking to ISIS, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't drink beer or eat the pork you're going to put on a pizza," and you're like, "Oh boy, this is rough. What do you drink?" "We drink coffee and tea." "Oh no,
you're not going to like Tim Hortons."
"Oh, this is a real diplomatic conundrum here we got."
The problem that I do see with that is that I see the defense side of things. You have to kind of, like, if people are attacking either your personal space or your personal freedoms, the reason for war is generally one side comes to the defense. Like, one side's on the attack, but the other side is just defending what they believe in. And that's the hardest part of trying to balance this out in my mind, is being like, what would I fight for? And like, as you mature and grow older and have more things that you would risk your life for, that becomes an easier calculation to say, okay, well, this is what I would fight for.
Now, I will say, I would rather have drone strikes, because they're obvious exceptions, but they're fairly surgical, because you have like a very powerful camera and comparatively small scale missiles, as I understand it. I would much rather have drone strikes than talk about the potential for nukes
Yeah. Oh,
mounted to an intercontinental ballistic missile.
yeah. If those are the two options, I would definitely agree with you.
Well, because I mean, if we were talking the Cold War, I mean, it was a nuke. You're just gonna kind of heave it across
Yeah.
a couple continental divides and wipe out a large area. Whereas,
Yeah.
I mean, drones don't have that destructive capacity, but
Well, they do.
I would argue they're roughly. You could get a lot more appropriate damage done.
I'm not sure that I agree with that, because the way even modern, just regular passenger aircraft are basically drones once they're in the air. Like, they're on autopilot most of the time.
So the way I'll frame this is I'm almost certain that during the Cold War, the Soviets would have had a nuke aimed at Edmonton because
Right.
I'm sure they did. More because they had a nuke aimed at Petrolia, and if they've got one aimed at Petrolia, I'm pretty sure they have one aimed at a much bigger version of that.
Right.
But were a nuke to go off near Refinery Way here, I'm not sure I'd make it.
Right.
But if a drone strike hit Refinery Way, I could see that infrastructure being eliminated, but I could also see me living.
Yes. I don't know that I necessarily think, is the goal for you to live? Like, is it goal for you to survive the actual impact of whatever missile?
No, like, I think this is part of the Geneva Convention. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to
target
aim at.
civilians.
Yeah, you're not supposed to target civilians.
Yeah.
But it's considered acceptable that you would take out something that's relevant to the military,
Yeah.
or a military effort. In which case, a refinery, yeah, absolutely, because that helps fuel all the vehicles.
Right.
And I mean, I think munitions factories were also considered a fair target.
This is all during, like, this wouldn't make any sense now. It would be like in an actual, when a war has been declared.
Well, I mean, this is also in the context of a total war.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
the bigger ones that we fought.
Mhm.
And yeah, we haven't had a total war since the Second World War.
Right.
But the idea being you could more appropriately eliminate opposing infrastructure with a drone rather than a nuke.
Mhm.
I mean, a nuke, you're going to stir up all kinds of problems, but you're also a monster then.
Yeah.
We've had long range missiles for a while though that do the same thing.
Are they as accurate?
I don't know if those, like, I guess it depends. If they're satellite guided, then yeah. But if they're not, then obviously not.
Have either of you seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
No.
I saw the first one recently, and I don't think I've seen the second one.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but one of the groups in that movie, like one of the groups they fight against, is basically a drone. Like, their only army is drone ships, and so each of them each of the people pilot a particular ship, and they really kind of, because in the context of an actual battle, and every time one of their ships gets blown up, it's more like losing a video game. They're just like, oh no, I like, basically, oh, I lost the ship, like I lost. And that's how it kind of comes across. Like,꯫ There's no actual real world consequences for the person if they lose. Like, it's, in the context of a battle, losing a ship, if you're not actually in it, is just like, oh darn, I'll go launch it, like pilot up another one and go in. It's very different to me from an actual battle where there's consequences if you are destroyed. So I lump long range, any missile that is piloted, whether intelligently by a machine or intelligently by a person, as being very different from actual kind of person-to-person combat.
And that would be the ethical quandary behind increased drone usage.
Right. And that's the part I don't like, because it's a whole other thing, if especially depending on what your target is. If your target is another like battle drone or droid or whatever it is, then it's very different from your target, no matter whether they are civilian or military. Like if you're aiming at a person versus aiming at a robot or a piece of infrastructure that has no people in it, for instance.
Right. So, but I think if you operate on the pretense that this war and these battles are going to happen regardless, so if it's not a drone, there's going to be a person.
Right.
Like, would you rather have that person's life be saved? Like,
well, exactly.
I know he's under the pretense of, well, I'd rather the war not happen, or rather just these battles not take place. It's like, of course,
it's a hard decision.
Right? Yeah. But when it comes down to like, okay, well, it's either going to be a drone or 10 people, because the drone maybe has the firepower of 10 people.
Yeah.
What would you prefer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I'm well aware that it's not as simple as like, don't fight a war, because it's often not your choice.
Yeah.
But the drone thing, I don't like it, because it seems like one side, usually in that kind of, at least so far in our history, one side has had that ability and the other side hasn't. It's been an unequal power distribution. Like, I love the idea of not having to sacrifice Canadian lives in order to fight a battle, but you have to kind of also picture, what if the other side you're fighting against is targeting us with the same technology that we're using to target them? Like, I would not want the ability for any opponent of mine to be able to target me.
Right.
I know that I'm not doing anything wrong, but that, like, they don't necessarily know that. I can't know for sure that they're not targeting me.
Right.
I'm imagining if you asked Londoners who lived through the Blitz, they'd have strong opinions.
Right.
What with the doodlebugs?
That's actually an interesting perspective. Like, you don't normally consider that. Like, if you're pro-war or anti-war or whatever, you're taking it from a perspective of being a passive third part, not even third party, just bystander, like to the war, like a spectator in some sense, right? And be like, oh yeah, it's fighting a good fight. There's a purpose for it. It's whatever. But that when you're experiencing that collateral damage, the same way that people in Syria are, the same way people in Turkey are, like whatever, then you might have a different view on the relative benefits of having a war happen.
Yeah.
And then once you start putting technology into it, like, it's one thing to have the risk of soldiers coming and intervening, whatever, but just have drones flying over and doing whatever at like a moment's notice, like, it's a very different thing.
Yeah, and that would be pretty terrifying. Just
So that's what every time I kind of go to this thought, that's what I think about, is how would I feel if that was happening to me? And it just, like, that's where I form my let's just not have a war perspective, because I can't imagine living under that kind of constant fear. This has been the most serious Future Chat episode made. Just gotta say. So
it's a pretty serious topic.
Yeah. So every time I hear about increased military spending, it's all great for defense and making yourself powerful enough that nobody wants to attack you, but you're basically opening up the possibility that a superpower or another power will become strong enough that they will still want to attack you, and then all of a sudden you have just escalation like we had in the Cold War. And fortunately we were able to walk that back.
It's not necessarily deterrent. It's just like having that what's it called, hard something power rather than just soft power.
Right.
Like, I mean, diplomacy is nice and talking about things is nice, but sometimes that doesn't work. And so that's the argument for the military spending has been, well, clearly the States is stepping aside with a lot of the global leadership on the issue.
Right.
And so we need to be able to step up. There's also been speculation that the Canadian government is trying to curry favor with the American government by saying, oh, look, we're going to spend a whole lot more on our military as per your request.
Yeah.
Which is another whole interesting angle to look at this from.
Yeah.
From which to look at this.
Yeah. I really hate that argument because it kind of seems like everything that the U.S. administration does is under several levels of smokescreen and deception. And so you hear about countries not paying their way in a treaty, and it's like, that's not how this treaty was set up. It seems like everything they're doing is from a fundamental misunderstanding of what the treaty actually does.
Now, regarding like the fact that the American government seems to be operating under several smoke screens, is that necessarily true if you have a Joker-like person at the helm and they're just inherently unpredictable? Is that a smokescreen, or is that just the Monte Carlo method of governance?
Well, yeah. So it's kind of, in my mind, it's kind of both, because it definitely does seem like there's a Joker-esque quality to the decision-making process. But then you start hearing that maybe the Joker had these bigger ideals in mind. Like I'm talking about the Dark Knight movie. Like,
yeah,
there was actually things going on beneath that initial layer of just seeming chaos that might actually be thought out. Like there are political powers outside of the executive branch that are trying to make things happen, and they're letting him go off and do whatever he's going to do because they're working on their own agenda. The thing that I don't really understand, and like it's why I can't take any of the American politicians right now seriously, is that they're being so brazen about being dishonest. Like the example that comes to mind, the president of the United States tweets a typo and then like accidentally hits send partway through a tweet. And we spend literally a week talking about it. And the press secretary's official response is that not, oh, that was a typo, like it obviously was, but he was like, oh no, people knew what that meant. Like you didn't know what it meant, but people knew what it meant. It's like, no, it's such ridiculous, like it's such a made up thing. Why can't they just admit that he made a typo? He's misspelled things many, many times before. He's not like, no, that's an alternate spelling of the word. It's just bizarre. And so that's why I think there is that layer, but there are other people in the government who are like very glad to have this kind of, honestly, like clown in charge so that they can kind of do what they do under the shadow of this giant distraction. I think of the military in the same way as that. Like
Sorry. I heard
what?
The furniture moving. The camera panned to Mike, who is just sitting there, stone-faced.
This whole thing, like it's really just a reflection of our time, and I have a lot of things that I want to write and say about it, but it's probably too heavy for this show.
Fair enough. But despite the negative press,
yeah,
the coffee was pretty good this morning.
Is that what he was trying to say?
No, I honestly think he was trying to type conference just with very meaty, potentially drunk fingers.
Mm-hmm. Well, apparently, and I honestly believe this, apparently he hasn't had alcohol in like decades. One of his very close, I forget if it was his brother, one of his very close family members died of like alcohol related. I forget what it was, if it was like drunk driving or if it was something like that. But he has famously been like completely stayed away from alcohol.
Oh.
So
which makes it honestly like even more concerning.
I was gonna say, I was like, he grew up swimming completely sober then? Like,
yeah.
I was
yeah.
I think that makes it worse in my mind.
Yes. So yeah, I don't know. We can probably wrap up this conversation on drone warfare because and automation, but
Sure.
I don't know. This whole the whole several levels of deception going on in politics is really weird to me. Sometimes I just you guys saw the gif of Jeremy Corbyn high-fiving his fellow politician's chest, right? After their
Did it actually hit the
I did
chest? It
not.
looked like it was in front. Like
no, it like reverberated off.
did it? No.
I've seen some pretty high resolution ones. He goes in for a high five. It looks like he wanted to do a high five. She did the finger guns at him, and then instead of high fiving, she put her hand down, and he just high fived like straight into her chest. It was pretty funny.
I have not seen this.
The coverage of it, I think if this had happened in the United States, there'd be like criminal proceedings against him already. But in the UK, it seems much more lighthearted. Like there's like, it happens. Like this was obviously not like sexual harassment or anything, but like even Elbowgate, I remember back in
right.
what was it, last year with Trudeau?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes these things just happen. It's not always, doesn't need to always be this big thing. It's just kind of like a funny joke.
Did you see the one? Like, there's an associated GIF of I think it was Bernie Sanders handshaking.
Sorry, I just watched it.
Bernie Sanders handshaking Snoop Dogg. I think it was.
That's not what you meant to do at all.
No, the Snoop Dogg thing, it wasn't like a botched handshake. It was like
no. That's what I'm saying. It was the opposite, right?
Yeah.
It was the opposite. It's like smooth transition from handshake, Snoop Dogg handshake.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. When you say Snoop Dogg handshake, it wasn't that he was shaking hands with Snoop Dogg, was it?
I thought it was.
Oh, I don't remember the exact thing. I remember him like, people have like, you see it with athletes mostly, like in baseball and basketball, where they have these like really elaborate handshakes.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's just like, he knows how to shake hands with whoever he's shaking hands with.
Donald Trump does not.
No, he just yanks your arm out of its socket.
Did you see that the French Prime Minister was apparently briefed on how to shake hands, and
yeah,
there's that picture floating around too?
Yeah.
Man, Jeremy Corbyn, that high five did go terribly wrong.
Yeah. I encourage, if you haven't seen it, listeners, I'll find it, or maybe Nick can post a link if he has one at the ready, because it's honestly hilarious.
You heard my reaction.
Okay, so anything else to say on drones or automation stealing our military jobs?
How do you feel generally about a large increase in defense spending?
I mean, I think large is relative. For instance, if you're the United States and you have what is it? Their military budget is larger than the next 10 countries combined or something like that.
Something like that.
I think that's insane. I don't think that needs to be a thing. But if we're talking about like a lot of money relatively, but not actually a large percentage of the budget, I think it's okay. I don't know. I
and a lot of people are upset that this does not include an F-35 replacement.
Right, but if it includes drone replacements for planes, is that better? Like, do we need actual fighter jets that have people in them if we have drones?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't like, not being an expert at all in the field. I'm
right. It's more of a
that was my first thought, but I'm like, can you like intercept drones if you have a fighter jet?
Yeah. I understand wanting to fulfill the requirements or the assertions of NATO in terms of the amount of military spending. I guess defense, because it's not military spending, it's defense spending. I've always thought that distinction is rather weak, but I wouldn't be doing it in response to pressure from the United States. I would think we'd want to do it because it's the right thing to do. But if like, I don't think it's not a hard, fast rule. It's not like 2% minimum. It's like do 2% of GDP spending. And so if you're even close, if you're close to it, it's not that you're failing. It's that it's like close enough. That's how I feel. Like, go for it, but make sure it's actually like, make sure you're not just spending it on defense for the sake of defense. Like in the US, they build tanks and stuff just for the jobs, and
they just set it aside afterwards.
They actually cannot use it. It's like, well, we've already got the contracts for it. I don't care if you can use it. We're going to build it, and like, this money is already in the budget. What about you, Mike?
As far as drones go, it seems like it's a no-lose situation. Like, these wars are going to be fought anyway, so if you can replace people with machines, then that's better. Collateral damage and severity of damage, whatever aside, it's more just a drone doing the fighting instead of a person is always good when you're talking about that kind of trade-off. Increased defense spending, I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, well, we're not being attacked, so maybe we don't need the defense spending, but it's like, maybe we're not being attacked because we are spending money on defense. Like, right? It's like,
I also have a rock that'll keep tigers away.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like the vaccination argument, right? Where people are like, oh, well, I never get sick, so why do I need vaccines or whatever? It's like, yeah, well, you're not getting sick because people take vaccines. Like,
yeah.
Right? Or it's like, oh, well, there's no polio anymore. Why do you need a polio vaccine? It's like, because people are getting vaccinated. That's why we don't have polio.
Yeah. So polio because we had a vaccine for it.
So again, it's one of those things where, like, maybe the defense spending is necessary to a certain point. And again, like Rob was saying, up to a certain point, and anything beyond that maybe is a bit extraneous. But for us, like, if a certain level of spending allows us to have the sovereignty and freedom that we do currently have, then I guess I'm for it. It's kind of like a necessary part of running a country, I guess, is having some level of defense.
Yeah.
And again, I guess you just hope that you never need it, right? And I guess, like, the defense does contribute to Canadian happenings. Like, they'll come as, aid, like for disaster aid and that kind of thing, right? So it's not like they're just there, like, aiming their guns out towards the ocean waiting for people to come. Like,
yeah.
So that spending isn't being wasted.
Right. At least not all of it. I'm sure some of it is, but
well,
that's true of anything.
Yeah. Ideally, it's being spent and then ready when needed. Hopefully it's not being completely wasted.
Yeah. So do we want to change gears completely? Mike, you have some stuff here to talk about, to say about TELUS and television.
I don't know. Seems kind of old, like, the story, but I don't think we ever actually talked about it or somehow missed it. But TELUS has come out with a TV box. It's literally an Android TV that has I think a custom skin on it, and it allows you to subscribe to basic, like the 23 basic cable channels, and allows you to pick 5 additional bonus channels, I guess, like specialty channels probably, for $20 a month. And so as long as you have this box hooked up to a TV or computer or whatever, you can use this app that TELUS has that allows you to stream this live TV. So this isn't like on demand or cataloged shows. This is like live channels.
Right.
So it essentially replaces like your cable receiver that you'd otherwise be having. So you spend $100 on this Android TV box, and TELUS links your TELUS account to this box back to their service, and then allows you to stream their content for $20 a month. And it's being marketed as a way to watch TV if you've, quote unquote, cutted the cord or whatever. Even though this is in effect exactly the same as getting cable, like, it's just a different device.
Right.
And this doesn't have a DVR or anything like that. It's called like the PIK TV, PIK, and it looks cool if you're gonna be getting basic cable anyway,
Right.
or want a way to watch live TV without. And this is all no contract as well, so it's $20 a month, but there's no term commitment kind of thing. And I think you're required to have TELUS internet with it. But if you're already paying for internet, then this is an easy way to get cable as well if you're not wanting to sign up for an actual cable subscription.
Right.
I don't know. I was intrigued by the different kind of business model, and it's kind of along the same lines of the move toward releasing dedicated apps for this kind of thing. And this is like literally an Android TV app. So this could be theoretically loaded onto any other Android device. Like they're locking it to these boxes that you can only buy through TELUS, and they do some sort of like MAC address association with your account so that you're only watching it from that one, and only the ones they've loaded onto are allowed. Like you can't sideload this app onto any other device and use it, kind of thing, right? But I thought it was interesting. What do you guys think as far as being able to do your kind of live stream TV content while not needing your typical cable subscription?
I think it sounds like there were a bunch of people around a table and they said, millennials aren't spending money on cable. How do we get money from them? What do they like? What do millennials like? Cell phones. Okay, that's good. No bad ideas here. Cell phones. They like the iPhone. No, use Android. we can't help out with Apple. It's too expensive. Okay. So they like Android. Can we get them to watch TV on a cell phone? Wait. What if we got them to watch TV with Android? And someone got a bonus, and there was high-fiving that went entirely right. And that's my read.
I think this could potentially be a good thing. I would have to actually try it out. So I found myself, we're in the season right now where live sporting events are marginally more important to me than they are the rest of the year. And
slightly above zero versus at zero.
Exactly. And so I have found myself watching TV live for the first time in a long time. This is also particularly interesting because I had friend of the show, Damien, ask me last night, I think it was very late last night, if I knew of any way to stream the Tonys because they are tonight. And I was like, I had thought about it, and I was just like, I have not streamed anything. Like I've not streamed outside of stuff that's available through my cable subscription in well over a year. Like I haven't watched anything that's not Netflix, YouTube, or through like my Bell app. And the weird thing about this, like she said this service itself is $20.
Yep. Per
and
month.
Then you can pick, you said 5 extra channels for $20 more?
No, five is included with it.
5 are included in that. Yeah. Okay, but
so I don't know which ones are included. I'm sure it's like Home and Garden and Food Network and all that kind of stuff.
Does it come with basic cable built in already?
Yeah. So like the 23 standard channels that you'd get with any other basic cable. So this is along the same lines as the minimal $25 per month offering that by law that everyone has to offer now. So this is kind of like, okay, well, you're going to be paying 25 anyway, minimum. So you may as well do the 20 plus get the 5 bonus and have it all on this Android box that you can obviously include any other Android TV apps that you can get on the App Store, or you can sideload it, I'd imagine.
Right. And so you said they come with default channels, but you can pick other channels in groups? Like,
I haven't looked that far into it. It said you pick 5 additional specialty channels. Yeah.
Because I'm intrigued, because it kind of seems like if it is the way I'm imagining that they should do it and the way I imagine they did do it, it kind of sounds like, you remember my 5 plans or like Fave 5, Fave 10 cell phone plans? I wish it was like that like every month you could pick the 5 channels you wanted to watch.
Right.
It doesn't happen that often that I want to watch something that isn't on one of like a handful of channels.
Right.
But it does strike me as, and maybe it's just because I've had cable for the last, I guess it's almost 3 or 4 years now, that I don't ever find a need to watch. I don't watch like shows on TV. I watch things that are live. Like I don't watch pre-recorded content on
Really?
television.
So you don't DVR a show and then just have a whole catalog just sitting and waiting for you to watch them?
The
Well, he
only
doesn't.
thing, yeah, Julia does quite a bit, but personally, the only thing that I've ever DVR'd, I think, well, I did. Okay, it's like the BBC Sherlock.
Yeah.
I did
Okay.
mostly just because I wanted to watch it relatively soon after it came out, and I didn't want to wait for it to go to Netflix or whatever, wherever it would end up. But the only thing that I did was Saturday Night Live. But that's the kind of thing that it's a live event.
Yeah. Well, it's super late too. Well, I
Yeah.
guess for you,
No, it's still super late.
yeah.
But that's the only thing. I don't watch any, like, YouTube itself alone has been mostly enough for all my stuff. The extra stuff that I watch, like during the NHL and NBA playoffs, sometimes I'll watch something if I'm home and it happens to be on. But I don't watch any broadcast TV shows. Like I subscribed to Netflix again for a trial month from the end of May to end of June. And I've had it for about a week and a half now. I've only watched one thing. Like I just don't, episodic TV isn't as interesting to me as YouTube is these days.
Right.
And TELUS is never going to make money off of YouTube, at least as far as I can think. Like I don't see how they could. So they're never going to, or at least currently they're not going to have anything that I'm interested in.
Yeah, this is a good way for people to get live TV again without needing the cable subscription. $20 a month still seems a little steep because you're still paying for a lot of stuff that you're not going to watch.
Right.
So,
but that's every cable package ever.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. This isn't that much different than what you can already do. Like you're saving money on needing the DVR or the receiver.
Right.
But I don't know how much are receivers these days. Even
they're
like without it,
just rented, like $5 a month.
Right, or you can buy it outright.
I don't think it's usually the way it goes anymore.
Well, that's what we did when we had bought cable a while ago. Because over however many years, you end up paying more in the lease than if you bought it outright.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know how much a basic receiver is that's not that doesn't have DVR in it. Like, I don't know how much more than $100 it is if it is at all. So I don't like the aspect that they can't DVR stuff because that's the only way we watch TV right now is just episodes of stuff. So it's kind of the opposite of what you do.
Right.
So, but I thought it was an interesting approach to see if you can get people who'd otherwise not get on board with cable. If it was a similar device, what they'd already be using that has Netflix and any other Android app on it, and is no commitment, no term contract kind of thing, and you get your basic cable plus 5 additional channels of live TV if that's what you're looking to consume, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see myself signing up for anything like this, but that's mostly because like maybe something like this would work for Julia, but she also, there's a few channels she watches, but they're not the basic ones. So if you can go and pick 5 channels, that might actually work pretty well for her because if she could just cherry pick a handful for $20 a month, that would be a good deal compared to the cable package we pay for now. Just because that $20 getting you like the local stations that have your news and whatever,
sports and whatever.
Yeah. That's probably good enough for most people.
Yeah. And yeah, like I think I'd probably want like a Food Network type thing, a Home and Garden type thing, and maybe like some Discovery Channel type channel.
We're talking like 2000s era Discovery Channel, not modern Discovery Channel, though,
Right.
I assume, because
Right.
now it's like reality TV and all that.
Is it? I haven't. It shows how long it's been since I've watched Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be, if I wanted cable, that might be a good option. Just because if I could get HBO, which has Last Week Tonight and Game of Thrones, and FX, which has Archer, pretty much.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't know which
HBO would not be a part of this.
And I'd imagine FX probably wouldn't be either.
Yeah.
Like it's probably
separate.
I thought they had in like their little example that HBO was an option.
I don't think it would fit in a bundle for $20 for 5.
No. You'd have something like Slice, like those types of channels, or
I don't actually know what Slice is.
Maybe TLC.
Nick, that's a good thing. You don't need to know what Slice is.
TLC sound well. Early aughts TLC would have been great.
Yeah, exactly.
Current TLC sounds like it's rather audacious that they call themselves the Learning Channel. I am learning. I'm learning what the Kardashians are up to. The Real Housewives.
This actually does.
Blah, blah.
This actually does advertise HBO as an option.
Yeah, if it was like premium options, sure.
HBO Canada, though, yes.
No, it shows Game of Thrones on the front.
Well, I know, but I think it's HBO Canada. Like I see the little logo there on the bottom, and it's the HBO Canada logo.
Possibly.
Which is, I mean, not to say that doesn't have a lot of the same content, but I don't think it's the exact. I don't think it's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm not super familiar with HBO, so the only thing I really know it for is Last Week Tonight and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah. So, Mike, it sounds like you're getting this.
No, because it doesn't have the DVR. Like I honestly, that would break it. Like
that's millennials.
Millennials are ruining watching TV when it's on TV. Yeah, it does seem like that's the most important. That's the most crucial feature of any TV setup that will launch that young people actually want is the ability to watch something when you want to watch it, as opposed to just when it's broadcasting.
I can't imagine like saying, "Oh, I got to finish dinner in 10 minutes so I can go watch my show." Like it's absurd.
Yeah, exactly.
Who does that?
I've seen so many think pieces or I've seen at least one think piece that says that's why millennials are the worst. They sit down and marathon their TV shows because they have no patience. It's like, or there's just no reason to do it the old way.
Yeah,
when current technology exists.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll stop ruining things someday. There'll be a new generation of people younger than millennials, and
we'll become the old people who are then ruining it for the young people.
Yeah,
and the circle of life will be complete. First, we're the young people ruining it for the old people, and then it's the other way around.
Dad, what do you mean I can't take my HoloLens out into the backyard? My show's on.
So last time you did that, you walked into a fence and broke it.
You guys have any interest in wrapping up talking about Pokemon? I put it in here. I think there's a lot to talk about. I want to kind of theorize what is happening over the summer. Do you need
to ask if I want to talk about Pokemon? Are we still at that point? And
you guys seem like, well, your first response when I brought it up was, "Don't we already know everything?" But I don't think we necessarily know everything.
Okay, baseless speculation time. Let's go.
No, not baseless. Based.
Pointless speculation time. Let's go. Let's get jacked. Let's get hype. Did you see Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are coming out?
I heard about that.
I heard about it, but I don't actually care.
Like right after. And everyone's all like, "Ooh, why is this for the 3DS?" And I'm like, honestly, I should just get a 3DS. Because the Switch seems, until they get get their things sorted out. I think the Switch seems pretty terrible at the moment.
I've only heard very, very good things about it.
If you
Didn't
like
it
the
like
games on it,
warp when it recharged or something like that? Like the battery gets hot and you can't put it in the dock anymore? I think I might be confusing or conflating a few stories at once there.
I don't know. I've only heard like people that really like what they have so far. Like they're interested to have more games, but that for what it is, they like it a lot.
Hmm.
Something
So-
about live multiplayer, like in a group, just sitting there with Nintendo devices. You can just like create an ad hoc network and play multiplayer. That seems pretty interesting. I'm not like, I don't play any handheld games, like I never really have, but it seems interesting to me.
Now, if I lived in Ottawa,
Yeah.
I'd say we should buy them and then go play like Mario Kart at Schlag.
Yeah. That would be my sole purpose for buying it.
Yeah.
for the one time you do it.
Yeah. That's right.
So, if we're talking Pokemon Go,
Mhm.
we're just prior to this latest event starting.
Yeah.
Which, Rob, I'll give you credit for putting stock in that prediction,
No.
or whatever you want to call it.
You guys
Leak.
were just wrong. I wasn't right in saying it was okay. You guys were just wrong in doubting it.
Doubting what? What did I doubt?
No, like the leak by that group
Yeah.
who said that
Fire
there was the
and Ice
Fire
event.
Fire and Ice event, and then it was ultimately confirmed. But Rob put immediate stock in it.
Yeah.
He said that it's confirmed. Like,
But they were like 2 for 2 before, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. That's why I believed them.
but
'cause
then they didn't predict other stuff. So it's like, if you're picking and choosing what you're predicting, you can't just not predict some things. And
I think you can.
Hey, if someone reliably leaks that I'm going to be able to get a Chikorita or a Meganium,
Mhm.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Another Razor Leaf Petal Blizzard starter, but I'll take it. Very good IVs.
Yeah.
And it can hard counter ground because it doesn't have part poison typing. I'm not bitter.
Well, you
Why
know
would
what?
you say that?
You know what I'm excited for is Slugma all over the place again,
Ooh.
and Swinubs.
I hope it's Houndour. I want Houndours all over the place.
Apparently they inversely correlate with Swinub. So I don't know about you, but we're just crawling in Swinub.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
I've only ever seen one Houndour.
we'll have so many Mamoswines in Gen 4.
That I'm actually I'm going through my Swinub now to try and see if I have any good IV ones, and the answer is no. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I also only ever keep them if they know Powder Snow and Avalanche.
Right.
Also, Edmonton is a little more of a fighting biome than Calgary was. Like I've
Calgary's-
gotten a
Calgary's
couple
getting
much-
more. Calgary's gotten more Mashops lately since
Oh,
you left.
well, that's good because of the rise of Tyranitar.
Yeah.
I'm also pending the gym rework. I'm sitting on 130,000 Stardust. Because
Yeah.
I mean, once they hard reset the gyms and Blissey comes back to me, I still don't know if it's worth funneling the Stardust because
Yeah.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
the
Okay, so-
rework's going to look like.
What do you guys think is going to come with this initial rework
I
rollout?
think that'll be raids was one thing. Did you see that they had code for notifying you that a raid is starting nearby?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but what does it even mean?
Yeah,
What
I
is-
don't know. Even if it was just taking down a gym
Mhm.
and requesting backup, just
yeah.
saying hey, I'm nearby, I would like my team support in taking this thing down.
Yeah.
I would be so happy with that because it means you can coordinate without having to chat in advance
Yeah.
about it.
Well,
You could just say, "Oh, I'm here right now. Is anyone else here right now?" Where you can do that kind of, but
my favorite thing is that within I guess there are ways to there's loopholes to all these things, like caveats and all that. But it seems like if you have an in-game feature that's like a Team Instinct walks up to a gym and says, "I'm going to attack it," and requests backup, like what you described. It's only going to go to other Team Instinct players. So unless you have somebody that has multiple accounts that's checking them all, they're only people on your team are going to see that notification. So you're not going to get defenders on, like hordes of defenders coming up because they got the raid notification too.
Do they? I can't remember. Do they have a notification that says your gym is under attack?
I think that was one of them.
In Ingress.
No, they release a whole bunch of different notifications in one of the developer Discord channels, I think.
Okay.
That there were a couple different types of notifications that you can get. One was like, that was a one where they leaked like your defender needs a berry, or your defender is hungry and needs a berry. And one of them was, I think, your gym's under attack, or your defender's under attack, or whatever.
I wonder if do you know if you have, no. I was going to say, do you know if you have to actually go there, or you can just like send a berry to your defender? But
you probably have to go there.
You guys don't know, because I don't know. Because none of us know.
But for real though, I don't know if you guys heard, like, have you played Ingress at all? Like you even get emails if your portals are under attack.
Yeah. I played Ingress. I took it off my phone because it's taking up precious space and old phone. But I got an email from them the other day. They offered me some swag if I log in again.
And so you did, of course.
It's not on my phone, so no. But like they offered me a MUFG capsule and some good stuff they offered me.
Wow. Not enough though.
Clearly not.
So yeah,
cliff hacking. Ugh.
I'm very intrigued by gyms needing to be disabled in order for these changes to take place. I'm just so curious why that would need to be a thing.
Yeah, it has the potential to be so different that like, no, we just got to like kill everything. We can't just go live with this.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'd be okay if they killed everything.
What do you mean killed everything?
Mike watched damn it. Mike watched Fight Club the other day, and he was just really intrigued by the ending.
Yeah.
I don't know what the ending is. No, like if just the gym scene right now, it's stagnant. It's only that it's stagnant. It's just I've little to no motivation to stay super hyped about it, because like this time last year it was good. Like I was a part of one of the more organized groups in our communities, and you'd go out, you build up a gym and you'd sit in it and it was fun and whatever, but it wasn't like being taken down by like spoofers and then bubbled up and then immediately added like 10 defenders by the same person, like,
and there was no shaving.
Between like multi-accounting, spoofing, shaving, like just logging into other people's accounts to add their defenders into the gym, you just bubbled up. Like that's not fun. Yeah. And so like that completely demotivates me to do any sort of organized taking down of gyms or whatever. Like I'm still involved in like the handful of gyms around me, but I'm not going to go out of my way to actively participate in other types of gym activities, because it's just it's a product of its own incentives to be in as many gyms as possible.
Yep.
For as long as possible.
Oh, hey guys, there's future chats going on live. Wonder if I should watch it.
You probably should.
I hear those guys are great.
The thing that I'm most intrigued about by this announcement, I think, more than even like this Chicago Pokemon Go Fest Chicago, is the sentence that we can look forward to the update focused on collaborative group gameplay features. Because that's kind of the goal we wanted, is not to have Pokemon Go be in isolation unless you're physically seeing someone in the real world. Like I want to be able to go with people, like go on Pokewalks with people and have actual things that we can do together.
Right. And I've seen a lot of sentiments about hopefully this update doesn't disadvantage or discourage solo players
Mhm.
from playing, but it's like, maybe that's not what the game's supposed to be, right? And that's and I'm okay with that because I do have like an organized group of people that I play with, so I guess we'd have that advantage. But I can definitely empathize with people who do play solo, because there's times where I'm playing solo as well, and I wouldn't want that to be a disadvantage as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
All I really want is a way to be able to play this game and not need to go anywhere, like to be able to do something to get something for playing while sitting in one spot.
What
Anything.
I really, really want most of all is an end to the dodge glitch. Dodge glitch and the death loop. Like,
yeah, it's the same thing, but
that is first and foremost among my desires.
I guess the dodge glitch and the death loop are two different things.
Yeah.
Like the death loop happens when the dodge glitch happens.
Yeah. The death loop being a product of the dodge glitch, but you don't have to do the death loop for a dodge glitch. Yeah. Because like, even just on my own, going out and saying, oh, I could prestige up this gym, and then I try and I'm like, nope, I can't prestige up this gym because it could take me like an hour to do it this way.
Yeah. That happened to me when there's a gym of 2 Snorlax, and I was adding my third, and I was going to open up a 4th spot for someone to drop something in because I didn't want to be a dick and have someone have to prestige against 2,900 Snorlax.
It's good of you.
So there I am trying to open up a spot, and sure enough, Hyper Beam comes and dodge glitches me and kills me, and then death loops me, and then I switch to a different one, and then the attacking isn't happening, and then it keeps trying to switch back, and then I timed out, and then I rage quit that gym.
Do you also get it where you just like get the spinning wheel?
Yeah.
For like 30 seconds of a 90-second battle?
And the timer's counting down, and the health isn't going down, and the defender's not attacking. And then it resets, starts attacking, you lose a bunch of HP, and your timer doesn't reset. Yeah. And it's like, that's nice. That was amazing.
Yeah, like my Machamp was totally on its way to defeating this Blissey.
Yeah.
It's not going to now, but screw me, I guess.
But it's crazy because it resets health and HP, like health and energy, but doesn't reset the timer. It's like, at least reset the timer.
Yeah. That's like arguably the timer should be the most important thing.
Yeah, that's I am finding myself, like, since I started mostly biking to work, that was the time where I did on the bus ride, was where I did most of my playing. I now get my daily bonuses, and like if I open the game, I'll catch whatever's around me, but I don't do anything else.
Oh man. So because Kai and I don't actually see each other during the week right now, what we do is I'll go and have lunch with her a couple times a week. I've switched from taking the LRT to taking the bus because you were right, Rob. Those bus rides are magic. It counts most of the distance you travel, and you're spinning stops and you're catching things, and whoa.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Buses, they also travel streets that are more likely to have actual stuff going on than LRT routes, I imagine.
Right.
Yeah. Well, LRT, nothing happens because there's no internet connectivity between the stops, because in Edmonton, a lot of it's underground because it's not in a floodplain. Calgary could take notes.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they're probably past the point of no return anyway. There's no internet connectivity and no GPS activity. So I've tried playing, and it's just like, dude, no. And then if you do get above ground, as soon as you're above ground, you're going too fast and it locks you out.
Yeah.
There's no playing on the LRT.
Yeah. There's some things that I think that they could really take a look at. Like, I know a lot of people complain with Pokemon Go and with Ingress as well that they play all the time, but where they play a lot, there's not necessarily things to do. Like whether it's if there is something going on at my house all the time, like if people have said, why don't you just add the ability to have a Pokestop that follows you around? Like what would that harm?
That
Pokestop that follows you around.
Like
man,
like a home stop.
having
like wherever
lived
you
at a
are.
home stop, it's incredible. Like it's an entirely different game. I would never have bought additional storage space because I wouldn't have needed.
Rob, you're suggesting that you don't have to go to specific places to get more items. You
get more, but every 5 minutes you could get, if you played, you could get 3 items.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy, Rob.
I'm not sure that it is, because if you live in a city, if you live in an urban core, there's like a 50% chance that's your life.
But
so all it does is disadvantage people who don't have that.
What they need, and this would disadvantage urban players, but your stop output of items should be proportional to the amount of stops around it.
Yeah, that would be,
yeah,
I think, fine.
Right. So right now it's like 3 to 4 items per stop. It should be like, I don't know, 30 to 40 items per stop. If there's 10 times less stops around.
Yeah. If there's 10 times less. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Like if you're in, man. So interesting note, Torrington, which has like maybe a couple hundred people, maybe it has 2 gyms and like a few stops. It has almost the same number as Kirkland Lake does. Huh. And Kirkland Lake has around 5,000 people and 3 gyms. Crazy. If only there were more Ingress players in Kirkland Lake.
Like even in our community, there's 3 or 4 stops, maybe 6 in a community of 20,000 people or however many it is. But downtown you have like hundreds of stops for the same size, like the same area. But if someone isn't able to be downtown, if they're only limited to those 6 stops, like how are they ever going to get enough items to participate in any sort of hunting or gyms, right? Like they have to drive back and forth across community like 20 times to fill up their bag.
Yeah. Can we wrap up by talking about an actual live Pokemon Go event? I feel like, similar to what I was saying before, as opposed to Niantic setting priority for certain cities, like New York and San Francisco are 2 of the biggest cities in the world, but they are also some of the spots with like the greatest density. Like all the big cities,
they're not actually that big, especially compared to some
population-wise. I mean,
yeah, no, especially compared to some cities in the Middle East.
I don't mean the biggest like by population objectively in the world. I mean like for their like population density and size for that area. I realize there are cities like Tokyo, for instance, is like this giant metropolis that.
All right, city by population density. Let's see: Manila, Pateros, Mumbai, Dhaka.
Yeah,
Kalukan,
that's right.
Banai Brak.
I mean, compared to the surrounding area, like everywhere in China and India are very population dense.
In the countries that matter, Nick. That's what Rob's trying to say.
Manila is in the Philippines, Rob. So.
What do you mean? The Philippines has a lot of people in it.
It does. They really like rice. And also Catholicism.
I hope you understand what I mean. Ottawa.
Don't.
Ottawa is never ever going to get a live Pokemon Go event if it's just Niantic planning them.
So it's not
true. Like
if you look on the Ingress site, they have a listing of past events, and they'll have cities that host the primary events, and then they have other cities that have like remote. I think they call them remote events or whatever.
Yeah.
So Calgary hosted one, like a remote one, where they had like Niantic reps and leads and whatever, like in Calgary. but it was in conjunction with the quote unquote main events that were hosted wherever else in your New Yorks and San Franciscos of the world, right?
Right.
So Ottawa could conceivably have one, even if it's not the headliner main event. It'd be in conjunction with another city's event.
But so let's say legendaries come to this Chicago event. Would every city that wanted, like that expressed interest, also have a similar event with the same things going on? Like, why even have it be Chicago then?
I think it has something to do with scoring. But I'm not
Scoring
entirely
how?
sure. No, because the Ingress events are usually competitive.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they add up the score of the two main teams for whatever it is they're supposed to be doing.
Okay. And do you get, like, if you win, do you get personal XP or something for winning?
I don't actually know what personal XP is, but like theoretically it's supposed to influence the storyline of Ingress, and the main joke is that it doesn't. Like
Right.
exactly the same could conceivably happen. It's like choose your own adventure where your choices don't actually make a difference.
Right. Like, whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter.
Well, the points matter in Ingress because you can create new stops
Yeah,
or new portals.
I just hope that you're not going to be forced to travel to a different city or country in order to actually participate in an event. Because I know none of us are going to go to Chicago for this. But if that means that we miss out on something really cool and massive, then that would kind of be disappointing.
I'm so worried that we're gonna have some huge event, like a legendary is gonna be spotted at like 6 o'clock, so everyone's gonna be off work except for me, and I'm just not gonna hear about it.
No, that's when you pull the family emergency card.
Yeah.
You only have so many of those to use.
I've got a family emergency. Kaya's at the Pokemon Go event, and she's hurt herself. I come back like, Nick, how did it go yesterday? Great, I got zapped. I mean, great. Kaya was much better.
By the way, we are all picking Zapdos, right?
We'd have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if
13.
there's this survey on Sylph the other day asking about like what legendary people would pick, and like 50% of people were gonna pick Zapdos if they could only pick one. Which is like, for me, when I picked Instinct, it's like, well, this probably has some bearing on which legendary bird you get. That was part of it. But it's
I
like,
totally would have gone Mystic that way, though.
if with what? Oh, if you'd known you could still get Zapdos?
Articuno was my favorite legendary bird.
Really?
I really liked Articuno and Zapdos, but Moltres, I think it has to do with picking Bulbasaur, but I never trusted fire types. I just like, no, you stay off in your own little spot there. Yeah.
I think it's more just fire types have such a crippling weakness to water, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many strong water types as counters.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
I mean,
they're at least more plentiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the meta for the first two generations, especially when Pokemon Go first came out, was just bulky water types were going to be the be all and end all, which is why Bulbasaur is still the thinking man's choice. But I don't know. Like I finally got an Arcanine with Firefang and Fire Blast, and I'm still super stoked about it because Flareon just goes down so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And now the steel types, like Scizor, is showing up in gyms, and gotta have a fire type for that. Anyway, what I'm getting at is Articuno. I totally would have gone Articuno because the other thing was like Dragonite was so huge.
Mm-hmm.
Would have gone with the ice type legendary bird. The one thing I do like about Zapdos is he the only one who's not doubly weak to rock? Because I feel like ice flying and fire flying are doubly weak to rock. So The Rock Throw Stone Edge Golem, it's just getting maxed out.
Yeah. Mine's already maxed out.
If only my perfect golem didn't know Earthquake. Oh well. Or Rock Parfait, as I call him.
So I feel like, I mean, we're out of time for the week, first of all, but I feel like most of that is out of my system now. And now I can just get hyped about the Fire and Ice event, or the Solstice event, as they are calling it. Which doesn't make any sense for Fire and Ice, but...
Yeah, summer, winter.
Because this is actually one thing they've done well, because for a long time, like, the Southern Hemisphere was complaining. It's like, you're basing everything on the Northern Hemisphere. It's hot here. I can't go outside.
I guess so. I guess that's fair. That's true.
And like, yeah.
It's not their fault that 75% or whatever the population lives in the Northern Hemisphere.
Well, I mean, also in fairness, like if you lived in a lot of places near getting closer to the equator, summertime is too hot to go outside. You can only go outside in the winter.
Yeah.
Well, on the equator, it doesn't matter, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, on the equator, they have the hot season or the dry season and the wet season. And the dry season is really hot and oppressive, as I understand it. Anywho, is there an opportunity for Mike and I to do an after show?
Yeah, of course.
If Rob has to leave,
but I will leave this. I will stop the broadcast, but I'll leave. Let you guys finish the show. And I'll say to our viewer and our listeners, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Future Chat. You can head to unwindmedia.com/future chat for past episodes of the show and much more. And we'll see you next week.
Toodaloo.
Ciao.